You're listening to That Home Loan Hub. I'm Zibuni Salimova, here to make home loans and property investing simple, smart and stress-free. Let's get you closer to your property dreams. If you just listened to the previous episode of me and Micah talking about subdivisions and the infill house and you were wondering what the heck is an infill, listen up. This is the episode for you. I've got Micah back. Hello, Micah.
Hello.
So, infill houses, and we've decided to title it The Good, the Bad and the Ugly.
Right, yeah, okay. Quickly rack my brain and think about some examples. No.
Yes. So, what is an infill house? Let's start there.
So, yeah, an infill house or infill subdivision, it's a bit different from the greenfield subdivisions where, typically greenfield of the subdivisions are the ones we know where, say, a large bit of farmland, they put in roads, they divvy it up into, say, 500 square metre plots, sometimes a little bit less, and a bunch of people buy the bits of land and maybe go to a home builder and they can build this essentially new part of a suburb that comes up together.
Okay.
So that's greenfield. Those are the subdivisions we quite often know. An infill subdivision is where we're working within the confines of an existing suburb. There are houses all around, and we're looking at a front yard, a backyard, sometimes even just a driveway down the side and going, how can we maybe use this bit of land better to build a house? Mm-hmm. So,
give me the good. What are the good examples of a good infill subdivision?
I would like to think that the subdivision we did with my friends was an example of a good subdivision.
I was about to say, I think that's a brilliant example because you didn't encroach on their personal space in terms of their bathroom not looking into your living room or vice versa. Yep. You were conscious of their space and not blocking in any light or views or whatever. Yeah.
So this is what I think is really important, and it's part of the sort of bigger theme, if you're in the greenfield, you've got a large bit of land, you can kind of do what you want and you get away with it. If we're doing infill and it's, there are houses all around, maybe there are trees or there's sunlight we need to consider, or we're tucked up against the road or that kind of thing. The smaller the site, the more important it is to get a good design strategy. It can make or break it. And so the idea of the good, what sort of good design strategies are there? And I think the core idea is actually by thinking about the space in between the buildings rather than the building itself. I think this is the key to an important subdivision or an important infill rather. So just as an example, I'm gonna leap to the ugly or the bad options. Some of the bad examples that I've seen around, there's a beautiful old house and they've gone and whacked this 2.5, 3-story thing in front of it. There's actually nothing wrong with the old house and there's nothing wrong with the new house in and of itself. The problem is that the old house looks straight at the bathroom of the new house and that it's 2.5 meters away. Or maybe the driveway to the new house goes straight past the living room of the old house and people are just looking straight into each other, or maybe it blocks their sun. So the problem isn't the house itself, it's the spaces in between the houses. So it's really important to approach it kind of the other way around. What spaces do we need around the houses? And from there, we design a house that works with that.
To be honest, this rule should also be applicable to the greenfield subdivisions as well.
To be honest, yes.
Because I know so many examples where people, they buy this plots of land in the new subdivision and they're only 400 square meters and there's
200 square meters of house put on there or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. And they literally can pass on a cup of coffee from each other's kitchen to, to each other. It's just gets a little bit too close.
Yeah.
So, I think this is a brilliant rule, should be absolute foundation for any type of subdivisions.
Yeah, it's a bit of a golden rule, really.
Spacing is the key.
Yeah, and it's about creating positive space. Now, what I mean by positive space is maybe it's easier to understand what leftover space is. Maybe that's the strip of land down the side where the rubbish bins are or something like that. That's kind of leftover space. But the positive space is the deck or the courtyard or the the garden that kind of contributes to two houses or something like that, which gives a nice sense of space in between them. So yeah, it's really about thinking about, this positive space between the dwellings. Then obviously sort of adding into that, you've got to think about all the other things like orientation, sun. Am I being a good neighbor? Am I shading them?
Yeah.
Or maybe I'm not shading them. I'm only shading their roof for 3 hours a day. And so it doesn't matter type thing. So it's about, about getting the design right. So you're, being a good neighbor.
One thing that popped into my head is, let's say in the new subdivision like we're sitting in right now, there are rules, there are covenants, what the houses should look like, what type of material they're built with, etc., etc. Over the time, obviously, as subdivisions get older, certain rules get a little bit
watered
down. And in older subdivisions, there might not even be any covenants. So what I often see is, as you say, there might be a beautiful house at the back, and then something that has been transported across from a completely different era and just looks out of space, out of whack.
It doesn't sort of, enhance the area in a positive way. So,
And by doing so, if you're still the owner of the two lots, you might actually shoot yourself in the foot because you're bringing down the value of both houses.
Yeah, you've got to protect your main asset, and the way to do that is actually through thoughtful, considered design work.
Because sometimes people see those removable houses that they can buy quite cheap, $20,000 for a house to be transported.
Whack it on.
Yeah, whack it on. But sometimes that's not the best solution.
Yeah.
Maybe while you're renting and, renters don't care. So while you're renting, maybe it works. But if you are reliant...
They've got this place, but...
But if you're reliant on capital gains and improving the value in the future, just maybe a thought that needs to be thought
and that's
through.
Sort of part of like thinking ahead, like going, well, what do I actually want to get out of this? Because, what are we creating? You're ultimately creating a life for someone, whether that's you to move into or your kids or a friend or just to sell to somebody else. So, getting the big picture right and thinking, well, what sort of mass can I build here? I think the other way to think about it is also, in our situation, we actually built a really small house. We really tried not to max out the possibilities. It was only 100 square meters, but I could have built more, believe it or not.
Wow.
We've actually planned it so we'd build only 60 squares now, but there is space that has been left over for a future addition if we need it. So, but I think it's also about thinking, well, what do I actually need? And we've got another podcast coming up for interior space tips, which sort of helps contextualize what you actually need and how about using space properly. So we'll come to that. But so that's, I think, an important consideration. And then the more obvious things like light and, your relationships with your neighbours. And coming back to that positive space that we talked about earlier. So
I love it. Thank you, Michael. I think this has been very, very useful for those that are thinking about subdivisions, because I do have a lot of clients that have houses, especially like outside of Wellington, live in Otaki, like this is my area of interest, right? I know this areas quite well. They still have houses that have quite big plots of land where you can subdivide, where you can put through another driveway and put a house at the back or the front. So I do have those sort of clients thinking about those things, but then you do gotta think ahead, as you say, what's the purpose? Why are you doing it? Are you doing it to sell off? Are you doing it to rent it out, to increase your income? What are you doing it for?
What's actually quite interesting is like in some situations, people actually haven't known, clients of mine haven't known exactly what they want out of it. But what they've gone in for is something that they can rent now that gives them options to move into in the future as they maybe want to downsize or... And it's weird because thinking about the two houses as a unit kind of working together opened it up to, intergenerational living and all this flexibility for their longer term planning. Like, oh, okay, well, I'm going to move into the smaller place when I'm 65 and that's all I need. And maybe my son can go in the big one because, or my daughter, and they can have their family there and we can, all live happily ever after. I don't know.
But exactly. So you got to think a little bit ahead, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. Also, Micah, thank you so much. And for those that haven't heard about Micah before, go back and have a look. We've done some epic episodes together, and there's a whole story about Micah and his tiny home. Listen up to the next one. We're doing 7 tips on how to maximize your interior space. Thank you. Bye. And that's a wrap on That Home Loan Hub. Don't forget to hit subscribe and join me next time for more property tips and tricks. Your next smart move starts here.